Multi-hazards, all about protecting communities.
Hi everyone, this is the Multi-Hazards podcast where we take a deep dive into issues in emergency management, climate change adaptation, security, etc. And overall, the aim is protection, protecting communities. Welcome, Vin Nelson here with the Multi-Hazards podcast. Today, it is a great honor to have a special guest, Akhilesh AnilKumar. He is a college-aged student at the University of Wollongong, majoring in cybersecurity in computer science. He is director and co-founder of the Bring Back Green Foundation and co-founder of the Swap the Straw campaign. He is from Kerala state in the southernmost region of India, but is studying currently in Australia. He is one of the many young people working hard to bring change to this world. Well, listener, it's my tradition here before interviews, because of my deep respect for First Nations people on whose land I podcast, here in the suburbs of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, to say a territorial acknowledgement. And I'm taking this from Kwantlen Polytechnic University, or KPU, which is just a few kilometers from my home. Here we go. We work, study, and live in a region south of the Fraser River, which overlaps with the unceded, traditional, and ancestral lands of the Kwantlen, Musqueam, Katzie, Semiahmoo, Tsawwassen, Kikite, and Kwikwetlam peoples. These are the names of various First Nations groups around me here in Greater Vancouver, here on the west coast of Canada. Now, without further ado, let's get to the interview. So welcome everybody. This is Multi-Hazards podcast, and we are here with an excellent international interview. And we have, let me see if I'm pronouncing correctly, Akhilesh, and sorry, could you help me with your family name?
It's AnilKumar.
AnilKumar, okay, Akhilesh AnilKumar. And he is, right now, it's on the other side of the planet. So we're having a kind of I guess the wave is going straight through the planet to each other through Skype. So great. Yeah. How are you keeping in these strange and interesting times, Akhilesh?
First of all, hi. And, it's been very difficult, I guess, in terms of, personally and be it in your social life. It's really strange as well because, as you mentioned, it's a new way of living, and the new way of living is with masks and no social contact. And it's barely minimum because you have to keep social distancing, and you are not, as comfortable to go outside as before because you might contract the disease anytime, and the fear is you are spreading it to other people. The youngsters might be safe from it, but other people might not be. So you shouldn't turn out to be the carrier, and it's a big scare. So yeah, you're pretty much confined to your bedroom and house, and
right.
It's a very difficult time. Also in other ways, people are suffering mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, in every sort of way. And one thing that hurts me is, there is only limited amount of scope in reaching out to people or conducting social activities or helping these people out. Mm-hmm. So, it becomes really difficult mentally to me as well.
Right. And I think typically you're based in Australia, and now you're in that strict lockdown in, is that the south part of India right now?
Yeah, actually. So the story went like, I came back just a couple of days back, before the lockdown starts, back to my own state from Australia before everywhere the lockdown was beginning. Right. And what happened was once I reached home, I had to, go through a very strict quarantine period. It was like near 1 month, like 31 days or something like that. And after that, once I stepped out, also people were like, they were like, does he have to step out? Is he right to step out? Like people had that stereotypic thoughts, and I still had to confine for another 1 month just so
Oh my
people make
goodness.
up
Oh my
stories.
goodness.
Yeah.
So in Canada, we say, I don't know if you have this word, but cabin fever, when you're kind of stuck indoors for the winter for like 4 months. So it's that psychological, I won't say damage, but it does hurt. It's painful to just be stuck indoors and not really exposed to nature, right?
Yeah, it's pretty difficult. Also, what happens is, to me, I had to stay in my whole room, like just in my room for these couple of months, because as you know, those like the quarantine rules, especially in India, is like you have to be confined to your home if you're like coming back from a place where there is being infections or things like that. And you should also maintain a very low key with your parents or your family members or anybody, and they
Wow.
can just provide you food, and if you have to contact them, I have to call them via my cell phone, and that's pretty weird.
Yeah, it's tough. I know in Vancouver, Canada, where I live right now, there's a law. Basically, anybody who comes to the Vancouver airport, they get stuck in a hotel beside the airport for 2 weeks. They can't go out, and they have some Red Cross workers that bringing them food to their door, and I don't know, giving them free cable TV. I don't know what it is, but it's kind of like being in jail for a while, right? So
Yeah.
we don't want to go to jail, but at least everybody's getting that feeling, right?
Also, I think this is a time where you start, you know trying to understand, or resolve your mindset into thinking how it should be for animals, or like people in jail, or how certain social lives are for other creatures in this planet as well. So
Mm-hmm.
if we find it difficult just to be in our house for like a couple of weeks, how difficult it might be for other people who are sharing this planet, who might be going through for years, or like creatures who are going through suffering through this pain for like they might be confined in a much smaller space.
Right.
So yeah.
And zoos and things like that. But I think the animals now, they're all partying throughout the planet. They're like, yes, humans, bye. We are taking over. So we'll see how long this lasts, right?
Yeah.
Oh, tough times. Well, it's good to have you here. And I think you're sort of doing what I'm doing. It seems, I don't know, I'm guessing, but because of this COVID-19, I decided I'm going to start a podcast, and I've just been like spitting out episodes like every few days, right? Doing it as a season. It's kind of like I'm competing with myself. And it's like I saw on YouTube, I saw online that you're being very productive in terms of online content these days, right?
Yep. Yeah, very, very, very active, I guess. Like, one of the reasons is like, to, one of, if I give you a short bio of myself, I am like the co-founder and director of an organization called Bring Back Green Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do, or what our core values, or what we focus on, is climate education, and then we also give focus to waste management and a few other subsidiary topics, but basically we focus on climate education. And it was done pretty much through physically visiting schools, or doing conferences, international conferences and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
until the lockdown happened. So once the lockdown happened, you pretty much had to make the choice. You either continue after the lockdowns, or you use this time as beneficial as possible and try to spread the message without having any blockade in between, or not stopping the momentum as such. And I
Right.
think that's why we were spitting out content as much as possible. And even I started a podcast, but it's called Sustainability, the Green Game,
Okay.
where
Mm-hmm.
where we discuss why climate change is like a some sort of like a war or a game which we are playing right now,
Mm-hmm.
and why we should be focusing on a lot of things, why we should take action, and how can we beat this war of climate change. How can we beat it through social justice, maintaining environmental justice, creating activist programs and things like that. How can we reverse the damage that we have done?
Right,
But I
exactly.
was not able to be as consistent as possible, because there are multiple channels where I have to focus on, and it's been pretty difficult.
Right, right. Now I'm really surprised because you have done a lot, and I don't think you're that old. So I'm really impressed, and I'm just wondering if you could give our audience just a brief bio.
Yeah, so currently, as I said before, I'm the co-founder and director of the organization Bring Back Green Foundation.
Hmm.
So I am just 20 years old at the moment. I just turned 20 last month,
Wow.
in April actually. So currently, as you said before, I'm studying in Australia. I'm based in Australia at the moment. I'm studying computer science, and I'm majoring in cybersecurity.
Wow.
So yeah, and at the moment I took a semester break to continue my activism programs. We were having a very good momentum, so to keep that intact, I had to take a semester break and come back to Kerala. Uh, then if I talk about when I started all this or stuff like that, it was nearly 1.5 years ago.
Okay.
So I joined college first in Kerala itself, the place where I am from. Then I had to drop out and pursue my passion of studying abroad. So during that period of time, which was in late 2018 or stuff like mid 2018 to late 2018, I started volunteering in an organization which basically dealt with helping out autistic and mentally disabled and physically disabled children and old people as well. So it gave me a huge insight into social work and things like that. I was actually very curious and passionate from when I was a kid. Try to make startups and projects and try to apply for different programs and things like that. But it's only after I graduated from school did I get the opportunity and support, to completely be engaged in this volunteering process or try to do social activities. And it really redefined the way I look at a lot of things, how, what happiness is to a lot of people, how I can make lives of other people better and things like that. And I was actually, from being a volunteer, soon within just a couple of months, I was promoted to a campaign manager where I had to manage a whole campaign which was run all across my state
Wow.
in the
Okay.
country. And then with that experience also in hand, I gained a lot of contacts and experiences on how to do a lot of things like that. And it was during this time the Kerala floods happened, which was pretty famous all across the world
Oh
because
yeah. 2 years
yeah,
ago, right?
yeah, 2 years ago that was the major one, and it happened last year, and we are expecting one for this year as well.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah, where I come from here in British Columbia on the west coast of Canada, it's like every spring floods, summer too, and then wildfires come usually midsummer. So wow, that's amazing. Cybersecurity. I took a couple courses in that a year ago, and it's really deep actually. It's
Yeah, it's pretty
way more.
deep.
You think that a 13-year-old just gets his a laptop from their parents and they can start hacking things, and no, it's way more layered and deep than that. So and who knows, there might be some connections between what you're studying and all the environmental things. I actually have a contact. There's artificial intelligence right now. They're using a lot of pre-existing data and for flood mapping in Canada, for example, because they need to have up-to-date flood mapping so that people know the best places to live and what they should do with the existing infrastructure and residential commercial areas. So one of the steps is the flood mapping, but to do that, they had to take all the maps in the whole of Canada and they have to feed it into their machines, and then they get at the end they get some more concentrated data to work with. And I never knew that this field even existed. So yeah, anyway, so that's about artificial intelligence. It's funny because most people are like, oh, robots, oh, they're going to take over the world, but it's nothing like that. It's more like it's kind of like your calculator saving people time. So that's so awesome. You're kind of like a world traveler and you're getting involved in a lot of things young. It's kind of like I keep thinking of Greta Thunberg. She's like was it 17, and she's almost a legal adult in Sweden. But I think that the world belongs to the youth, and I'm older, and I really believe in what you're doing, and I think that you're going to be packing in way more than in the 10-year period than people of my generation. I think my generation, I think we kind of fooled around and wasted a lot of time and drifted like a sailboat with no sails. But I think your generation, you're going to make every day count. So I know it's heavy pressure, but yeah, I'm
Yeah,
just wondering. Okay, go
also.
ahead. Sorry.
That's all right. As you said, it's a lot of pressure on the youth as well. But mainly, we'll come to this topic later in the podcast. But still, what we are doing is, as a social activist or young people, uh, we don't want to stick to the old ways. We demand change because uh, we are the people who are going to live for the upcoming decades. And if
Exactly.
we don't have that safe, secure life, or at least the safety of being in this planet, then how is it going to be worthwhile? So that is one key aspect of why youth is coming in so much.
Hmm.
And I think it is pretty important as well, because a lot of people are not taking notice of
Right.
the things that is happening. And in a lot of ways, in mainly in social justice being denied all across the planet in various forms, be it racism or social other social problems and things like that. And then comes environmental problems, which somewhere is intertwined with social justice as well. So I think it's
Hmm.
pretty important youth has to come to the forefront and start addressing these problems.
Right. So that means that whatever you study at university is going to have it's going to have an impact, like wherever you take it in whatever career. So yeah, I really believe that. I remember going to university. Seriously, it took me like 5.5 years just to do a bachelor because I was like working and studying, working, but it felt like forever. And then when I got out, it was like it took me forever to get a decent job. So it's nice if you can have things like happen a little bit faster. And it's also a lot of there's also a lot of challenges because I remember the worst I faced as a youth was remember grade one. I was like me and a kid were talking, who's stronger, US or Soviet Union? Who can beat each other in a war? Yeah, can you imagine 6-year-old kids talking about that? And then later on, I remember as I got older, the worst thing was, there was the Gulf War in Kuwait, and everybody was talking about that. And but it's like where I came from in Canada, it's the worst we have to worry about is McDonald's not putting the pickle in your chicken burger or something, right? So I think youth of today are facing a lot more issues like climate change, human extinction. Like that's the worst of the worst that anybody can think of. So, and I think COVID-19, we're getting a little taste of this pressure. So yeah, I really admire you how you can put up with the strict lockdown where you are right now. So I think once it's finished, I don't know. I think you might. I won't say go crazy, but you're gonna really love the outdoors. You might be
Yeah.
hugging every tree you see after, so saying thank you for the trees. But I'm just wondering for your career, what's your vision and dream for the next few decades? And now I know that's either a really cool question or a really scary question.
Yeah, it's somewhat scary, but uh, currently I'm just going with my flow. There are a lot of downsides to it, but I am taking the positives in a very good way as well, because there is a lot of plans going in my head, to develop my organization into an international one where it engages with the youth in a proper way, develop a lot of things and things like that. Then also currently I'm working on a book as well, so there is a lot of things going
Wow.
on. Yeah, so and I can't pretty much pinpoint where I want to see myself as in like 10 years or things like that, because as you see, like Corona is something that gives a slap on your face to the question, where can you be in your next 5 years? Because it's pretty much uncertain. But if you just go with what you're passionate, I'm not like, it can have its downsides, but you might still be ending up being happy in some sort of way. And to me, there is a lot of things going on in my head. There is a lot of projects that I'm working on, a lot of organizations I'm currently engaged with, and it's pretty mad at some points of time. But yeah, it's going really good. And I really plan to take all these activisms and companies and organizations and things like that to a very big step ahead in the future. And it's not about the recognition in any sort of way, but it's about the change that I can inflict in the people and in the society, and bring about a systemic change that can benefit the upcoming generation. So that's the dream.
That is so awesome. Honestly, your response is probably the most scientific because a couple of years ago I ran into this thing. It's called flow theory, and you might want to check it out online. But it's a part of positive psychology, and it was basically saying that humans are most happy and most productive when they're going with the flow. It doesn't mean you're just kind of aimless and letting outward circumstances control you, but it's just having a clear set of goals, and then it really helps you to just time flies when you're in the flow. And it sounds like that you figured that out. It took me a couple decades to figure out, but you've got it down already. So that's so awesome. Now, I'm just wondering here about Bring Back Green, because I thought this was great. And honestly, how did I find you? I think it was one of those podcast listing sites. I forget, like Listen Notes or Spotify or Stitcher or something. And then I was just looking up podcasts about climate change. And most of the ones, at least for now, it seem like they're from like US or Canada, maybe Australia. But I found yours, and I had to listen to some episodes, and I saw your YouTube channel. So I thought, this is awesome. This is great. And then I found that you are the main architect of this. So I'm just wondering if you could just let us know a little bit more about Bring Back Green.
So the story goes like around a year back, where I actually started another project in association with the organization I was working. So something that actually moved me is, as I was just telling you before about the Kerala floods that happened, and it actually got me inspired. But the way it got me inspired was, I went to this forest cleanup. Soon after the floods, it devastated like around the landscape of a very pristine biodiversity spot in Kerala. And I was lucky enough to be volunteering for cleaning up that area of the forest, which was a part of a road which led to a very, scenic and beautiful top destination of Kerala, which is which is known by all across the world, and where peoples, foreigners, and everybody come to enjoy. But what they forget is, on that path of a really big biodiversity hotspot, they just litter that whole road or that whole forest with plastic and food and all sort of waste. So this cleanup was called on by the forest department after the floods, mainly because there were landslides, and it brought out all the plastic trash which was left buried for like decades. And the animals soon, because after the flood and landslides, they were like, they have limited amount of food, and they were panicked, and all they could see is plastic bags. And sometimes they had food inside the plastic bags. It was mixed up with a lot of other things, and they started consuming these plastic waste, and a lot of animals were reported dead. And this was the main reason why they called upon this cleanup. So what happened was, I got to be part of that, and it was a really incredible and eye-opening experience. And we just worked for around, I guess, 4 hours, 3.5, 4 hours. There were almost 100 of us. We worked on I guess around 30 kilometers. I don't know if you guys use miles, but
We
about
use
30.
kilometers here.
Yeah, okay. So it's 30 kilometers, and there were 41 zones, and we were 100 people. So in that 4 hours, just from the roadside, which was adjoining to the forest, we were able to collect around 30 tons of plastic waste.
Okay. Wow.
And there
30
were like
tons.
hundreds of bags, big bags of plastic waste that we have collected. And we were like super surprised of, and we were also super sad because me and my friend who went to do this cleanup, there are some interesting pics as well. We were super sad because we were not able to collect as much as possible because there were a lot of plastic and other waste products which went deep inside the forest. We could see that with our eyes. There were like shiny white plastic cars and everything in the forest and animals exposed to them, but it was hazardous to us and the time was limited, so we couldn't go and pick all that up. And it was seriously, we felt guilt of how much single use plastic we just throw away. So what actually moved me was one product that I got a lot of times repetitively, and one of the most frequent product I got during the cleanup, and it was a plastic straw.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like seriously starstruck, like plastic straws in the forest. Like we just use this for maximum couple of minutes, and
Wow.
we just dispose it, and it's literally even in the forest. So think about how much it could be near an economic zone or near your city or town, how much millions of plastic straws we dispose each day. I think an estimate is almost 500 million plastic straws per day, and I think it might be just in the US or around the world. I'm pretty much not sure about it right now. So this struck me, and I really wanted to change this. So that's when I started a movement called Swap the Straw.
Mm-hmm.
And that, with the help of my friend and many organizations and the NGO that I was working with at that point of time. So with all the support, I made this like a state level campaign. I got support from a lot of people, actually also from the biggest IT park in India.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was like a lot of support. We did a lot of activities. So one of the significant achievements was submitting a petition to ban single-use plastic straws to the Chief Minister of Kerala. And then, with the support of all other organizations, we were able to ban single-use plastic products in general in a lot of municipalities, as we say. It's like small suburbs, which
Okay.
is governed by a local body. And then also the major achievement that was like we were able to provide awareness to a very large community. We were able to provide awareness to the vendors why you should be choosing other alternatives. We introduced other alternatives at that point of time. We introduced paper, bamboo, and steel straws, and then introduced them to these products and said, this, if you use in this proper way, it will be more economical to you. You can reuse the product. You can choose the alternative which is best for you. We didn't force them, or we just gave them the options they have and why they should be using it. And
Right.
the positive side was a lot of like cafes and juice bars, they actually changed. We were able to reduce significant thousands of straws from actually being disposed. And this was the start. This was actually my start from actually a pretty much successful campaign. And then I understood how positively I can impact the surroundings. And then a few months later, I started Bring Back Green Foundation.
Okay.
And with the help of a few of my friends, and we added a few team members and things like that, currently we have done a lot of activities in the like scope of just few months, I guess. It's not even been a full year yet. It's just, from after registration, it's just been around 6 to 8 months, and we have achieved a lot during this period. And it was due to the active involvement of all the youth who were supporting us and things like that. And if I go on, there is a lot to speak about, even of Bring Back Green's achievements and things like that. But really happy where like we are in the position right now. We have actually national level support and things like that, and it's going really good.
Wow, that is so awesome. So one thing you're learning how to network and get things done in your state or in your area, and then I see also you have kind of an international slant. You're collaborating with people worldwide.
Yeah, actually, we are collaborating with people worldwide as well. But the reason why I'm sticking to Kerala is, as I mentioned before, about the success of Swap the Straw campaign, and the contacts that I have, the support system that I have in Kerala. Also about it, what influenced me is the Kerala floods, which, as I
Hmm.
said, we are, assuming it might come this year as well. There is a predictions and things like that that it might come this year, and it might be more worse than what happened 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So the fact that this has links to climate change, to individuals and people destroying the planet, there are like mining and other processes which is actually stimulating these floods and unnatural disasters. This really caught my mind, and understood that there is a large scope for change in my home state. And
Hmm.
why should I, that I should start here. I should start here and make a large change, and then apply that to all across the world. Try to expand it as much as possible, spread the message as much as possible, get as much people involved into our activities, and so on.
Right. That is so awesome because you're taking climate change not only from a mitigation point of view, but also adaptation. You're kind of having those both sides. You're looking at the disaster, sorry, the effects of climate change and the flooding and then all the garbage and the plastic that's out there, and then you're saying that hey, this is also because we're heating up the earth. So there's this dual thing that I think people, especially the last couple of years, they're starting to realize that even though we should have been onto it in the late 70s at least, but I don't know if we could actually say better late than never in this situation, but it's necessary, right? So,
Yeah, it's absolute necessity of the time.
hmm now you're really focused on youth, I see. And of course, because you're a youth and it's easier to work with people your own age, I understand that. So, what do you say on a bigger picture? What role do you think youth have in dealing with climate change?
So I think we have a large role to play, and one of the main reasons is because, as I mentioned, because before, we are the people who is going to suffer at the end.
Hmm.
You know, the changes are pretty much drastic, and it's very visible. In any part of the world, it's visible to our own eyes what is happening, and what is the clear links to climate change. See, the I'm not a scientist in any way, but there is even links to COVID-19, to climate change, and our illegal wildlife trade. Then
Hmm.
things like that. One of the wildlife occurrences are very much rapid these days. There is a lot of cases being reported, like if you have heard about the locust swarms happening in West Africa, and then it happened also in India a few days back. It came in Pakistan, it came in India, it devastated crops and everything. And this happened because of a serious link to climate change. And the weather patterns change actually helped breeding of locusts into multiplying into millions, and that resulted in a lot of physical damage. Corona has some sort of link to climate change, wildlife trading, uh, and our,
And
we are just,
deforestation, right?
yeah, mainly deforestation. That was what I was going to tell you. Like, we are just crushing into the forest, then where do these animals go? So that's one of the main things that we should focus on. And youth, why we are into it is because we are pretty badly suffering because of all these impacts. That might be natural disasters, that might be, as said, the wildlife occurrences, problem occurrences and things like that. But we are seeing it and facing it along with our friends in the front lines, and we have to deal with this ever increasing problems for the next upcoming decades.
Right,
And one of the
exactly.
main things that we think about is the future generation should not point fingers at us like we do for our elders, saying, "Why didn't you act? Why were you ignorant?" So these two
Exactly.
things are driving youth, and we have a large scope to act here as well. We need to influence, the people who are in power and make them understand that it's environment over profits and it's finally people over profits.
Right,
You
right.
can continue like this, drilling or, exploiting the planet to only a certain degree. After that, where will you go?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
so we
remember a few years
that,
ago there was all these science fiction movies, and it's like, oh, we're gonna find another planet, and I'm like,
yeah,
yeah,
the problem
not
is
in
that
reality.
even if we find another planet, how can we be sure we are going to protect that planet? Our
We'll
behavior
destroy
is
another one.
destroying our own planet that, gave us life, and we are going in search of another planet. What is the chance of not destroying that one as well?
Right. Now, a question for you here about adults. Now, honestly, like I'm over 50, and and hear about youth kind of blaming adults, right? But um, I'm not saying that, I'm innocent, but it is kind of frustrating because I remember a couple years where I'm like, oh, climate change, I'm not going to drive anymore. I'm going to, be careful about everything. And then one day I was riding a bus and I looked at the bus ahead of me and all the smoke was going in the air. And I said to myself, I'm not driving a car, but I'm riding a bus. And this bus is, sending up greenhouse gases. And then when I go to the store and buy some running shoes and walk, but my running shoes are contributing greenhouse gases. So it was a real like struggle in my conscience of saying, I'm going to be like a monk living on top of the mountain and not involved in society or anything in order not to emit greenhouse gases when at the end of the day, I'm part of this system. And it's this whole system that I feel like I'm so small in this system, and what I buy and where I go is very limited. I don't have these choices. I can't even afford an electric car, right? So I'm just kind of just saying that, we look at all adults everywhere, but
Yeah, so
at the end of the day, there's actually a small groups of people who are running this whole system, and they have the money, they have the power. I'm not trying to be conspiratorial here that there's a group up in the Swiss mountains and they are, controlling the whole world. But it's true that there are people who have more money. They're part of a wealthier class who control companies, there's people who are empowering governments, and they have what they call vested interest not to change anything. They want the plastic straws. They want everybody to drive a big truck, right, or a big van. They want the ships and the airplanes, and they want the pipelines. They want to keep everything going as usual because their stocks and the stock market are at risk, and they need to keep that money going. Even during COVID-19, they want people working. They want everybody out there working because that's what keeps the profits flowing in. So I'm just wondering if you had any comments on that.
yeah, I certainly have. And the thing is, when we say adults, it's not generalizing everybody as a whole, because technically we are pointing fingers on certain people who should have taken action when the time was there. Okay, like, so it might be politicians, it might be people, as you said, who has vested interest in profits, who really just care about the money and things like that. But we are technically pointing fingers only at those people. And I really support a lot of adults who, are in turn supporting us for being stepping up into the movement. I have even noticed, like, my mom, she, the first day I was like started getting interested about, not using plastics and things like that, she has been a big supporter. She has, made the switch to cloth bags, and whenever I by mistake also, might use a single use plastic, she is the person who, says, now watch who is doing. And then like she she has made that switch in wherever areas it's possible. So we cannot generalize in terms of adults are the only people who are, making these problems or things like that. And they are also facing technically like a lot of issues faced by climate change themselves. But we are pointing fingers at those who should have acted. We are pointing fingers at those who had the power to not make this worse, who had the power to change the course of history into something that was better and something that was green. And still now they have the opportunity to make the switch to alternate energy. They have the, power to, just convert their country into something that is much better, not their country just impacting or influencing the whole world to follow suit and focus on environmental targets and things like that. But a lot of people are ignorant, and that is the problem, that is, making us, giving us chills and, wanting us to protest. So
Right.
we're not generalizing adults as such, and we are really happy a lot of people are supporting us. So why the climate change movement or the protest has been this successful is also due to the involvement of a large sector of adults
Mm-hmm.
or elder people who have, said, yeah, this is true, these kids are speaking the truth, they are not just cute kids walking the streets saying, holding placards for something that is purely strange or science fiction or hoax, but they are telling facts. Listen to them. There has been a lot of people who are supporting us. There is, yeah, adult people who are, scientists or people who is working on this field, who has been helping me, or other organizations or other people, activists and things like that, about the protests, and supporting them and giving them advice. This is what is happening, you should be following this, you should talk to your fellow politician or whoever is in power to change this and this. There are the experts who are giving us guidance are also adults. So we are
Right.
not blaming adults as a whole, but there is a small sector of people who should have taken action.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't say that adults is, wrong because of one another thing, that they lacked awareness.
Mm-hmm. And it seems like there's this sort of two-track system, or not system, but kind of activities that are happening. There are people who are adults, of course, who've been like pushing on a political level, economic level, anything they could on climate change since like the late 70s. They've been pushing and pushing and pushing, and they haven't had much response. But some people gave up, and then some people just keep at it, keep at it. They keep pushing. And then on the other track, there's the youth who are saying, hey, what is going on? Why aren't these people at the top? Why aren't they listening? So I think those people who've been spending 10, 20 plus years working on these issues, they're kind of refreshed. They're kind of relieved that youth are stepping up. They're putting political pressure on these others. And I was talking with somebody about, we have so many protests happening they have it in the US now, and in Canada also, like Black Lives Matter, and in Canada also we've had lots of issues with police and other forms of discrimination coming against Indigenous peoples. So people are saying, well, this has been going on for decades, but now that protests are happening, yeah, it gets on the news, people are more aware, but it's kind of like putting pressure on politicians and on economic leaders to make a change, right? That people are not going to just sit at home and twiddle their thumbs, but they want to see some change. And whether it's at the voting booth or whether it's on the street, or whether it's like organizing in companies or government or community level, there are people now who are awakened to what climate change is and what it's doing. So yeah, it's a lot. We're at a very historical moment, and I don't know. Can you feel that?
Yeah, we are at the peak of the movement right now. there is a lot of millions of people who are getting involved into this, and the protests are actually giving a face to the issues that we are, facing, climate change. Be it, we are telling people when it gets on the news or when the social media pops up all these articles and posts saying, young people are on the streets having placards saying, you know, we demand change and things like that. There is a large community who is getting affected by it. There is a large community who understands or gets awareness. Oh, yeah, this is happening, and so we have to take some action against it. Or, oh, I didn't know this was related to this, or I didn't know this was happening. Now, that's why these people are out there. We need to make that change. Oh, and I should start acting. So some people gets to know that, knowledge on a lot of things. But also, what I would like to add to what I was saying before is that, why a lot of people, such as adults, might not have taken action is because they were not affected by the impacts of climate change in a large scale until, 2000s. So it's only when you get personally affected, or when you see somebody who is personally getting affected, do you understand the severity of the problem, and you understand why, this is a thing that you should take your interest in, or why this is a thing that matters, and why your voice should be there, out there, and things like that. So it's also about that personal impact, and it's only been, few years where things have been pretty rough for the whole world due to climate change, or other disasters and things like that. Only then is why people are taking notice of all these things.
Right. And when times are good, people are like, yeah, whatever. But when people have been personally affected by a disaster, it's number one, is scary, but number two, it's like it gives you a choice. It gives you a chance to do something. So, and as an individual, sometimes you probably agree, sometimes you feel powerless. But on the other hand, it is really refreshing to kind of make that link between yourself as an individual and then to other like-minded people. So you yourselves, it seems you're really good at Akhilesh, at building bridges with other people and building networks. So do you have any advice for people who want to do that? That's something I want to learn.
I'm not pretty sure.
I'm not a good networker, but it sounds like you're 20 and you've figured it out already.
Yeah, but I think one of the key thing is trying to, communicate about the issues that you face. And one thing that the connections that I have made is putting the word out there that, I am affected by this cause, or I think we have to do something against it. And what is your say? And I have found like a lot of people who want to be actively part of it. And I have found the co-founder of my organization, and who has been part of my campaigns for since the time I have started, is a very like-minded individual as me. And I found him because of the conversations that we had having, or the communication that I started, or we started, and talking about the similar things that is having an impact on us. And then, taking a step further, taking a step after that, you will, eventually make up like a lot of connections in which you are with like-minded people, and people who are interested in your cause, who will support you, who are at least be part, and virtually or however it may be, they'll give their support or voice to the cause that you're fighting for. And then also it's about the research that you do, and building up chains of networks. If I know this individual, who might they possibly connect us to, and what is the positive impact that we can build.
Right. And some of these people you're networking with now, you're going to stick with it for like 50 plus years. Sorry, imagine yourself in 2050, but or 2060, 2070. But yeah, these people, It might fade away after 6 months, but it could be very long term.
Yeah, sure. But also I have faced a lot of difficulties with the people I collaborate with. There has been difficult times where some might backstab you, or some might uh,
Mm-hmm.
there are chances where things could go wrong also. So when we communicate also, we have to keep that in mind, not just putting all the faith on that particular person because he might help your cause. Maintain some individual level as well in the relationships you build, but you know try to stick to what you want to put out, the voice that you're racing against, the topic that you're fighting for, the cause that you want the public to see. Keep that the first priority. Come down from there. When your cause is climate change, who is at the top, who might get you there to that person, or work that way down, and connect with people. They might seriously be interested with you, and somewhere they also might find you helpful, because they might also be looking for somebody who is such as in such individual who wants to raise their voice, or who wants to do activism in some sort of way. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a win-win game at some points of time. So do go out there and make those connections possible.
Right. And do you have any other advice for people who are, say, there was a 15-year-old listening to you now, or there was a middle-aged person who saw themselves working for the next few decades? Do you have any advice if they want to work either volunteer or paid jobs, something that tackles this climate crisis?
The first thing is understanding that this is a very important thing that we should be focusing on. Understanding that our lives and our future is at risk, and anything can go wrong in any instant. So one thing is we have to fight for it, and the second thing is eventually people in power, or however it may be, there will be a transition to a sustainable future. There has to be a transition to sustainable future. So the scope for in a career as such, or as a full-time paid job, or however it may be, there is a large scope for the sustainability, alternate technology, energy, and things like that. So climate change is something that is true, and people are starting to understand the impacts. People are starting to understand, to build a future where it's climate change proof. So there is a large scope for what you can do there. So if you choose your careers wisely, I'm not saying you should go against your passion, but somewhere, as what I'm studying, cybersecurity, or things like that, that could match up with the cause you're fighting for in the future as well. So
Mm-hmm.
do keep sustainability a factor in your mind while you take up decisions. So it might pay off at the end.
Right.
And yeah, so and another thing is, it's not just climate change that is the biggest problem of the century. In my personal opinion, I think there are two more things that, as an individual who is like 15 years old, or whoever it may be who is listening to this, should
Mm-hmm.
focus on, especially youth. And that is mental health, and cyberspace in general, like cybersecurity. But what I'm trying to say is not protecting yourself from hackers or such, which is a priority. But the main thing is, in the lockdown, or it's just been a few months, but the large polarity in the cyberspace or in social media is becoming very much evident. The
Mm-hmm.
hatred that is spreading in social media, uh, you know one individual might be posting something personal, but that becomes the topic of a big hatred rant by multiple people. There is this divide in social media in some sort of way, where it has not become like a safe spot. And
Mm.
anything that you post, or any message that you send to somebody, can be scrutinized at the end of the day. So I feel like the cyber world has become very much unsafe, and
Mm-hmm.
should be starting to understand, there
Right.
is problem like this, and it is eventually linked to our mental health also, which is also very growing concern these days. There
Right.
is
I saw on Twitter, sorry, just to say, make a little comment here, what you're saying. I saw on Twitter, I didn't use it really before, and I started using it the last couple of years, and I'm like, I have a heart attack sometimes seeing the things that people are saying, or you read the comments at the bottom of YouTube, and you see, you're like, oh, is this a robot, or from a sort of an antagonistic nation state that's trying to just wreck our media, or is this like real individuals who really think like this? So, when I put up my YouTube videos, I make sure that it's no comments, because I'm like, you know what? I'm sorry, I'd rather have nothing than somebody get on there and start spouting off negativity. So you're so right in that. It can affect people if they read this trash too much, right?
Yeah, very much, because the thing is, social media is designed to be free, but in today's world, somewhere it's not free. The freedom is very restricted, but still the freedom we think we have, when we use it, it ends up hurting some people in the society. It ends up hurting some parts of the world. People might find something funny, but it might be ending up hurting a certain community, like maybe LGBTQ or something like that. Even though there is strong social activism coming on a lot of fronts, uh, but even climate change is scrutinized here. Even the youth, some youth is coming against it, and they are saying, like, why should you be talking about climate change? What you should be doing is going to school, or what you should be raising your voice against is might be a local issue. Why are you
Mm-hmm.
raising your voice against climate change? It is not necessary. It's not going to affect you, and you're just wasting your time. There is a lot of negativity associated with it as well in the online space,
Mm-hmm.
and young people are somewhere suffocated in middle. There is eco anxiety due to climate change, then the maybe personal or social level attacks, or things that you read which might affect you very badly on the social media. So these are very, very big concerns of today. And the thing that I am fighting for personally is bringing about a very big systemic shift in our education system,
Mm-hmm.
because very much it's evident that these three things that I just said is not being practiced or not provided as part of education to the upcoming generation or the youth. And they're lacking knowledge on climate change, they're lacking knowledge on what is happening to the world in general, they're lacking knowledge on how to deal with mental health problems and issues, or they're lacking health in how to be safe on the cyberspace. So
Mm-hmm.
these are the things that should be part of the curriculum, and that's the need of the hour, and they are not making that shift.
Right. Well, it sounds like you're going to be one of the people putting this stuff on the map in the future.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty much working on that at the moment as well. One is trying to understand the reasons of polarity in the cyberspace, and one is to amending the curriculum. So I have been actually successful in drafting the first edition of the education curriculum, which also inculcates the climate change aspects and understanding nature in a better way. This first draft was actually submitted to the education minister of our state, and it
Mm-hmm.
has drafted to experts to further study on it. And now we are working on the much better and upcoming draft, and hoping that it would come across in the educational curriculum all across India, and maybe
That,
soon in the future all across the world.
that's so awesome. So I'm just, I think we're going to wrap up pretty soon. Just wondering,
Yeah.
do you have one last message for the audience?
So my message would be, together we can build a future.
Mm-hmm.
So one which puts nature and environment at the forefront. And for that, we need people's voice. For that, we need your voice. So raise your voice for what's right, what's needed, and make the change happen.
Wow, that is awesome. Honestly, you have a bright future, and also you're an influencer. So not one of these online, Instagram influencers, but this is what needs to happen is how am I saying this word? Positivity, and connecting with the right issues that are timely, that are relevant for now and also the coming years. So that is so awesome, Akhilesh. I really appreciate you interviewing with me, and also best of luck with you on all your multitude of ventures, especially Bring Back Green. I think it's awesome what you're doing. So that's so great. And I hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for inviting me.
Okay, take care then.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Bye.
There it is, my spectacular interview with Akhilesh AnilKumar, all the way on the other side of the planet. Thank you again, Akhilesh, for being an honored guest here at the Multi-Hazards Podcast. So a little disclaimer here that I add to each and every episode, and it is, this podcast is meant to be educational and does not try to offer legal, medical, or other specific advice unless otherwise noted. Also, the opinions expressed here do not necessarily reflect those of the organizations that the host, that's me, or guests are part of. So, here as I wrap up this episode, thanks to all of you precious listeners for hearing today's show. Stay safe out there and stay tuned for more. This is Vin Nelson wishing you the best on your journey of surviving and thriving with all that life throws at you. Cheers to you all. Peace out.